Hey guys, so most of you guys know me for having a GT4, a 718 GT4. What most of you guys don't know is that most of my life as an adult kind of is driving. My daily driver was right here, is the one behind me, the Volvo C30. About 7 months ago, I put that away and I started daily driving a 2019 Volvo V60, which right now is actually at my house. But obviously once you start driving a regular car, you know, on your everyday commutes, but you're so used to driving, you know, fun cars, you kind of tend to want to look for a fun daily. So, you know, there's a lot of different choices for most car enthusiasts to choose a fun daily, and today we're going to be driving what is potentially the best, according to a lot of car journalists. A lot of people actually use a car like this as a daily driver, including most of the cars behind me are owned by YYZ Curator, and right behind me, he actually has his. This is an E46 M3, that's YYZ Curator's daily, but today, we're going to be driving this yellow one. We're going to see how it is, if I like it. You know, the one thing with those cars is they're a little bit older. So as a daily driver, you're going to want something a little more usable and comfortable. But these cars tend to do pretty well, and a lot of people tend to really love them. So today we're going to go drive this around. We're going to see how it is. But let me show you the car first. So here it is. This is the E46 M3. Very different specs kind of with the, I think this is Phoenix yellow if I'm not mistaken. And forgot which blue this is, but this is Jason's one. He's got the competition wheels as well. If we look, he's got them pretty much in like brushed aluminum or chrome or however you want to call it. But his is a very nice spec. Slightly higher kilometers on his. He really drives it. This is truly a daily driver. This one has about 70,000 miles, which is still an acceptable amount of miles for an E46 M3. So we'll get to drive an E46 that was actually tested and driven like it should be. We open the door and we see the typical E46 interior. This one has the leather seats and it has a sunroof, which I know the sunroof most people don't want, so this is kind of more of the luxury daily driver spec rather than the collector spec, even though the color's definitely a collector spec color, but the interior is kind of just for a regular daily driver. This one is a 6-speed manual. I probably wouldn't do the DSG on a regular E46 M3, however on the CSL it's not bad at all. But yeah, let's go take this thing for a drive, see how good it drives, see if it will make a good daily driver. Okay, so we're in the E46 M3 in Phoenix yellow, but what we're really testing today is, like, should I buy one of these as a daily driver? Very different from any car I've owned before, and it is something that's kind of older, so it's gonna have to be really good for me to say that this would make a very good daily driver. First thing I notice is the handling is very good. The car is very light, feels very nimble. Unfortunately, I do have a slight issue with that. Where it does feel light and very nimble, everything in the car feels a little bit loose. I mean, it's still very stiff, very good for especially a car this old. Small issue is that I'm comparing it to the last E46 that I drove, which was a CSL, and that car was definitely like on my top 10 cars that I would buy, period. This doesn't really hold up to that. This just has a little bit more weight around it, it's a little more loose. I didn't mind the DSG and the CSL just because it kind of fits the character of the car. The manual in this is good overall. The only thing I don't like is the shifter kind of feels very loose, like a very far throw. You know, if I gotta put it in fifth, it's like a far reach from here. And it just doesn't feel as solid and as steady as, you know, a modern sports car. The other thing that's kind of bothering me about this car is, if you've ever driven an M car, more like an older M car or any, I guess, BMW, the way you're sitting is you're not facing straight. You're kind of almost like your legs are kind of going a bit more to the left of your body, and you're just sitting a little bit awkward, which, yeah, you're gonna get used to it, but you know, it just makes it a little bit less comfortable. Yesterday I was driving it, and I don't know if it's because of the cold or what it was, but my back started hurting. Also, I'm not used to the seats, and that's another thing that I'm personally not the biggest fan of. I like, you know, uncomfortable hardcore bucket seats actually tend to hold me better, and it's just more comfortable for me. These ones are big, kind of like almost like couches, big leather seats, but they're still kind of hard. So it's overall, for comfort wise, it's probably not the most comfortable car, but I gotta say, driving wise, I mean, this car is a ton of fun. It's got great power for a car this old. I mean, it still feels very quick even by today's standards. So you will have a lot of fun driving a car like this every day. Now, the one thing I really like about M cars, and I really noticed that on the 1M last week, is as soon as you press the sport button, I mean, the throttle response gets so much sharper. The car just gets so much more aggressive. It's not the type of car that you're gonna question, oh, like I'm not too sure am I in sport mode right now or not. This car, you can really tell the difference. It changes the car completely. So if you want to have some fun, put in sport mode, and this thing fucking flies. It's amazing. I actually really like the power delivery of the car. I like how light it is. It's just a little bit loose. Like, everything feels like it needs to get tightened up a little bit for you to have a little bit more confidence in the car, and that's what I really liked about the CSL. The CSL felt like someone took one of these, hollowed it out, tightened it up, and the only thing is obviously that DSG gearbox, which is honestly not that bad in that car, but it just feels like they corrected all the little things with the regular E46 M3. But the one other thing that I've noticed, I've driven several of these E46 M3s. This one has about 70,000 miles. Jason's car has more than double that, and I gotta say they do feel just as solid with double the mileage. So long term, you're probably gonna have a pretty good time owning this car. You just gotta make sure you do your proper maintenance so nothing really goes wrong with this car. That's how you normally end up with a bad example. But you know, for a car with this performance, I mean, the price is amazing. If you look on Bring a Trailer now, depending on the mileage and the condition, you're going to be looking at between like $20,000 and $35,000 US, which sounds kind of expensive for a car this old, but there's nothing you can really get nowadays that's that price. I mean, you go to buy a new base 320i or anything like that, that's, you know, just a regular car, you're paying like double that. Like, it's absolutely crazy, and you're definitely not going to have fun driving that. That car will end up being worth absolutely nothing within a few years. If you buy a car like this, you can have a ton of fun with it. You can put a ton of mileage on it, and you're never really going to lose a lot of money, which is definitely what you want for a daily driver. And oh man, this thing is so freaking fun. It's not the perfect car, but I can definitely see why there's like a cult following for these cars. This specific one is completely stock too, so there's nothing really done to it. This is the way it's supposed to be. It's the way it should be. You can modify them a little bit here and there. I wouldn't go crazy. I would maybe stiffen it up a little bit, and I think that would make this car so good. But definitely in certain places, this will make a very good daily driver. Here it's still November, so I can still drive this a lot more easily. It's still dry here. It's not slippery. Once winter comes, we got put winter tires on it, and it's just going to get a little bit more complicated. But man, this thing feels pretty freaking good for a car that's now like 20 years old. So the reason I believe you're not going to lose any money if you buy an E46 M3, I believe that this is kind of the peak of the M3s that have existed. I think they kind of got a little better and better from the E30 to the E36 to the E46. There is serious improvements where you can see where the car got better. You know, certain people might like the older ones more, but you could really see the improvements. After the E46, the E92 was pretty great. You know, it's on a very similar level as the E46, but after that, we gotta admit, it kind of went a little bit downhill. They're not as exciting, not as raw. They don't have a cult following like they did with these cars. So when you buy a car like this, you're buying the peak M3, and really they're not gonna get to as good as this again. So you just know there's always going to be someone looking for the car you have. So you're just in a safe spot where you're never going to be stuck with a car that nobody really wants. And yeah, you can just really tell why this is everybody's favorite M3, or at least most people's favorite M3. It just feels so good. It's not too fast where it's scary. It's just enough to give you enough confidence to have a little bit of fun. But man, I just wish this thing was a little bit tighter. And another great thing with these, if you buy like any coupe, usually you don't have a ton of room. And this, you can honestly put people in the back very comfortably. There's a ton of leg room, big trunk, it's decently quiet. You can drive this and kind of forget you're in an M car. I mean, as soon as I turn off sport mode, I'm kind of back to just being in a regular BMW. And I don't mind that, because sometimes you don't always want to drive a super aggressive, stiff, sensitive car. Sometimes it's nice to just kind of drive a regular car. The one thing that's really starting to grow on me is the look of the car. You know, probably to a regular person, I wouldn't know, because again, it's hard to view it like that, but to a regular person that doesn't know about cars, it probably just looks like an old BMW. But as a car guy, you look at this car and you see the flared wheel arches, you see the more aggressive hood, you see just more aggressive bumper. Everything looks a little bit more aggressive, and it's such a good looking car. And I'm really starting to like that about a lot of older BMWs. They just kind of have those little bits and details to differentiate the M car from the regular car, and it just makes the car look so good, because I feel like you kind of know that it's something that mostly just you or other car people can see. It's not, you're not being obnoxious with a car. It's truly a car for someone with taste that knows what they're looking for. You're a car guy if you drive one of these. You're not just driving a BMW. And this one specifically, in this Phoenix yellow color, it looks pretty good. They don't really make new cars with colors like this, and there's so many different combinations on how these E46s can look, from sunroof to no sunroof, all the different wheel options, the different colors, different interiors, automatic, manual. I mean, it's just almost impossible to find two E46s that are exactly the same, which is very cool, because now again you see a new M4 on the road, they're all, you know, that light blue color, they're all the same. I mean, people aren't really differentiating themselves anymore. Everybody's just trying to get the color that everyone else thinks is cool. This, I feel like they're so much more personalized to you, which is something you don't really get in a lot of other cars. But man, like, it's a pretty good car, and the one thing that really surprised me is the sound system for a car this old is actually pretty good. So whereas for me, I'd kind of like to have a lot of new car features on a daily driver, because, you know, I don't want to have to deal with all the weird technology and stuff, like the old stuff. So it's nice that at least it has a good sound system. Overall though, to be honest, if I had to get a daily driver, a fun one, I don't know that this would be it. It's a great car, it's a great collectible. I'd probably, honestly, I'd have in my first 10 cars, if I had crazy money, I would buy a CSL. Maybe even eventually buy a manual E46, but definitely not as a daily, not as one of, you know, 3 or 4 cars that I'd own. I don't know if I'd get this. A lot of people would, and again, this is just my personal opinion. I like to have something that I don't have to really worry about, that it's a brand new, I don't want to say brand new car, but for a daily, I'd like something a little bit newer, a little more usable. I mean, here for Bluetooth, I gotta get those FM adapters, like all those little things that kind of add up, where you can kind of see the age of the car in the comfort features and the technology. But honestly, that's just me. That's personally what I like. A lot of people don't care about that stuff, and this would make a great daily driver. Just gotta make sure you're on top of the services, and you would literally have the best time just taking this thing around, driving it normally, and just having a blast driving one of these, because especially with a manual transmission, this car is so much fun, and it kind of sucks that the M3 went away from this type of experience. So yeah, that's kind of it for the E46 M3. I haven't driven one of these in a while, like a regular one, so it's kind of nice now, after I spent this summer driving so many different special BMWs, being able to come back to an E46 M3 and kind of comparing it to everything else and seeing how I like it now compared to everything else. Very cool. You know, I'd love to own a CSL at some point, maybe one of these too. I don't know if it will be a good daily driver for me, but nevertheless, I really do like the car, especially in a cool color like this. Great car. But yeah, that's pretty much it for this video. Make sure to stay tuned. I'm going to post a ton more. I don't know what's coming next, but I'm sure something's going to pop up. We're going to do other videos, so I'll see you in the next one.